Welcome to Athletic Ambitions with me, Fiona Carter.
And me, Tom Barlow.
We are here to share the stories of our Cass and Friends athletes, aspiring Olympians and world champions. We will also interview elite athletes and professionals. They will be sharing their stories, the ups and downs and bumpy ride that their journey may have. We will learn how they persevere and deal with setbacks, train and compete at the highest level, and how their mindset helps with every step of the way. So if you want to hear about our upcoming athletes and learn from the best, this podcast is for you.
This is Athletic Ambitions, where every journey begins with a single step.
So, Laura Siddall, thank you so much for agreeing to be our first podcast interviewee. It's so nice to see you this evening, and not this evening for you. I guess it's middle of the day for you in Boulder.
Well, thank you for having me on. I know we sort of met a few years ago, so you've been great at keeping in touch, and you always send me good podcasts or books to read or listen to, and I always appreciate that. So yeah, it's good to be back, and I love the work. Well, we've just spent half an hour talking about all the amazing work you're doing with the charity and the amazing athletes that are being supported by the charity. So yeah, really excited to have this conversation.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you. Well, for our athletes out there, you may not know all about Laura in terms of her background. So I'll give you a little bit of an intro. So Laura is probably one of the most humble athletes that I know of, heard on talking on podcasts. She's won Ironman world champion, or she's won Ironman races 4 times as a champion, 3 in Australia. And she says that's like a lucky situation, but I don't think it can be luck if it's 3 times on the trot. She's podiumed at Challenge Roth, which is a huge race as well. So an outstanding athlete, and came into the sport when she was 29. So in terms of a professional, that's when her career started. But like you guys that we support, she was also very sporty at school, but perhaps missed out on the sort of situations that our kids are lucky to have, which is talent ID and talent spotting. So unfortunately didn't carry on as a netballer or 400-meter hurdler, which is what she did at school. So an all-round accomplished athlete, a young athlete, and now taking sport as a really good career and profession. So that's a little bit of background on Laura. But as she said, we have met before, and we've talked about the charity a little bit. And Laura is, like me, just desperately passionate to support other people and sports people. So Sid, do you want to tell us a little bit about Sid Squad, which is something that you set up to support female athletes?
Yeah, I think, like you said, and thank you for that introduction. I'd always done sport growing up, but obviously, older than the kids that you're supporting now. And when I was growing up, sport was always just considered that hobby that you did, and you were sort of the visibility or the pathway through to having sport as a career just wasn't really there. And I loved doing sports. I loved watching the Olympics as a kid, and I was sort of that generation that saw Sally Gunnell, Denise Lewis, Kelly Holmes, Linford Christie, Colin Jackson, Jonathan Edwards, Steve Backley, that sort of era of athletes when they were in their heyday, Paula Radcliffe as well. But I don't think it was still really accepted or seen for me as a career. And so, I went through that normal path of going to school and, A-levels. I did take a gap year and then university and got a job, but sport was always still a part of that. So it was sort of later in my life that I sort of decided that I wanted to give this a shot with the triathlon side of things. And so I think I've always, and as you said, I was probably just a couple of years too late for when all the talent ID programs started coming in the UK. And I think it's fantastic now. And, yes, we still have a long way to go in opportunities and sponsoring, and hence the work of, or supporting, and hence the work of the charity. But we are getting better at that, and having these sort of ID programs and opportunities. And I think for me, like, sport has just given me so much experience and learning. You know, whether it's team sports and it's that teamwork, leadership, how to win, how to fail, like how to, you know, there's so many skills that you learn through sport as a kid growing up, even like confidence and things like that, that stand you in good stead later in life. And whether that's continuing as a career in sport, which I hope there are many people, you know, listening to this who are lucky enough to do that, or that you can take into whatever it is, the passion that you have. And I think I just saw, because I'd had such great, or because sport had given me such great opportunities, people I'd met, places I'd been, now the career, I wanted to try and help others have a door open to that, to what opportunities sport might present to them. And I think so, yeah, so with I sort of set up Sid Squad with was with a couple of, or one partner in particularly, Parkours, so with my wheel partner. They sort of said, we're going to give you an extra set of, I'd wanted to do something for a while. I'd wanted to do a team of some sort that helped athletes and help them with not just being an athlete, sort of that, the other side of things in terms of, not just the training element, but how do you actually present yourself as an athlete and support on the other skills, but just hadn't sort of got round to doing it. And then Parkour sort of said, oh, we're going to give you an extra set of wheels this year to give away however you want. So left the door open. So that was a good kick up the arse, I would say, to say, okay, here's an opportunity. And so I contacted sort of all my other partners, and they all jumped on board as well. And so we were able to set up this program where we opened it up to young females in the UK. I think it was between 13 and 18 that could apply for the opportunity to sort of, I guess, win some kit and from all my sponsors. And then if needed be, I would either act as a mentor and or then a coach if they wanted, and go further than that. And we unfortunately could only select one winner. And she was great, and we had a great year. And she was doing longer course triathlon and qualified for Kona, which was amazing. I mean, that wasn't in the sort of scope of what we were wanting to achieve, but it was fantastic. But I got blown away by all the entries and applications and how good all of them were, and the response. And I wanted to help all of them, and I couldn't. So I, tried to set up a community through social media and stuff to just have a space where they could chat, or where they could talk and ask questions about races or anything, and kit. And then the hope was to sort of develop that into that community and do sort of educate, get other athletes on and stuff like that. And I think it was a good start. I would have loved to just had more time myself to invest in, and more probably support from sponsors and partners to really get it off the ground. And also I think there was that, I think being that bit older, I used Facebook, but obviously the kids don't use Facebook. So I was like, I don't know how we create a community of network when it's not Facebook, if they're not all on. But I think it was good, and the actual program had a great response. And I still follow a lot of the girls now. Actually, one of the girls that applied, she rides for one of the pro women's tour teams.
Wow. Yeah.
Which is amazing. And then another girl is doing really well. In fact, they're all doing really well. So I still kind of follow and hope to keep in touch with, just send them words of encouragement and stuff. But
no, but it's really interesting, isn't it, that whole Facebook thing? Because we have a Facebook group too, so the parents join the Facebook group.
It's the parents. The parents are on there.
Yeah, and the kids don't. But you taught, it was like building this sort of like community, wasn't it? And you talked about that when you went to Australia, you sort of got into triathlon and joined the Bondi Fit. It was like your tribe that you wanted to be part of, and it's really important, isn't it? I think for families and children who are doing something a little bit different to some of their peers, to have a network or a tribe that understands what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things on that. Is that generally in life, we all want to feel like we belong. However much of an introvert you are, I'm a fairly big introvert as well. Like, I like my own space and my own time and escapism from life and people. But I also get my energy from that connection with others and being in something involved, or, as simple as like I go and sit in a cafe and have a coffee, and I don't particularly want to talk to anyone necessarily, but it's just watching the world and seeing and feeling that connection with people. And I think like I said, as much as we're, a lot of people feel that introverts or they do solo sports, we still feel we want to be part of something and have a connection. So there's that side of it with community. And just on your note, like, yeah, the Bondi Fit was a huge part of me in my early sporting career. And then for the next few years, I traveled around a lot and lived in loads of different places and pretty much trained on my own. But now, like the last 2 years, and albeit very much at the end of my career, I've moved back to be with my coach because she's got a squad and there's a group here. And again, it's that connection and that community that you want. And then the other side of that is very much around like the team element of like building for the sport, for the kids, for the parents, if it is a sport that's a little bit different or not mainstream, I would say, especially if it's an individual sport. Yeah, building up those connections of a parent network group, if it is, like you said, all the parents joined Facebook, even they want that sense. But definitely for the athlete, having a big support network of people that are in your corner, they want the best for the athlete. I would say they're not always the one, it's not necessarily about blowing smoke up, it's doing all it's having the right people that keep you in the right place. And that is either encouraging, lifting you up when you need to, but then having that reality check. And that's not being harsh, but just grounding at the right time as well. But then, yeah, and being there in the good times and the bad times. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, hugely important. And our because we're getting a little bit bigger, one of our parents has just found, she it's kind of her background, but she's been able to secure some really lovely sponsorship for her daughter to buy a boat. She's a rower. So I said to Cassie, is it possible for you to sort of share your expertise and share that with the other athletes' parents? Because we're trying to help them with athlete branding and sponsorship, but I'm not really an expert. I'm just trying to do my best to sort of give some pointers. And so, because that whole bit around sponsorship and athlete branding, that's hard, isn't it, as well? I mean, should we touch on that for you as a professional and then these children coming up?
Yeah, it is really hard. Especially, I think now in the world of social media as well, like I say the kids, that sounds really patronizing, doesn't it? But the youth, I don't know what the right word is, the younger generation, let's call it that, coming through. Like when I grew up, we didn't have social media. And yes, we do now. But even now, like I see, it's such a big part of being an athlete that brands and things want this presence on social media. And it's really hard because ultimately at the end of the day, you're an athlete and you want to train and you want to race and that's what you want to do. But if we want to take sports forward into the world, you've almost got to see them as an entertainer. You're an entertainer, which is hard because a lot of sport, not all well, in anything in life, everyone's got different personalities. Some people don't want to be as visible on social. They just want to get on with doing what they love as the sport. And also the flip side of that is you come into this battle with the influencer space. So people who are incredibly good with social media and attract a lot of following and attention, and therefore sort of perhaps get the sponsorship from brands that you kind of want them to support the athletes who are genuine athletes trying to work hard and at their sport and be the best. But it's this real tricky balance between, you know, what a brand wants in terms of exposure and eyes on and numbers, and who can do that. So it is really difficult. I think, you know, sponsorship in sport, and let's say women's side of the sport, has taken a huge leap forward in the last few years. You know, and you know, great credit to the Lionesses, the England Roses, the rugby team, netball as well. You know, over here in the States, the college women's basketball this year was incredible, had more viewing than the men, and it's been really amazing. But I think almost the danger is what we're seeing is then a lot, I mean, we're still little compared to the men's side, but a lot is going into those team sports, and the gap then to those individual sports and the individual athletes and the grassroots is sort of getting bigger.
Okay, yeah.
So that's really hard as well to say, hey, let's not forget about this whole broad range of sport, which as a kid, we should be supporting grassroots. There are next Olympians or world champions. I mean, it might not be an Olympic sport, but also just, again, you know, the mental, physical benefits of giving opportunities to the younger generation through sport is just huge for future and that support. But yeah, the sponsorship branding is really, really hard. It's almost that there's a catch-22 as well, because sort of brands don't want to sponsor you until you've got all these results, but then you can't get the results until you've sort of been able to get the support needed to be able to focus and train properly, to just be able to focus on that and not sort of having to work 5 million jobs a day just to scrape together to pay for your kit. And so it's not like it's amazing, and I think it builds a lot of resilience in the person for later in life, but it's hard on them to then compete at the best level of a sport when you're on your feet all day or you're up all night doing a night shift and that sort of thing. And go sort of talking still about the sort of female aspect of it and sponsorship, it still feels, perhaps I think I might have heard you say this on a podcast, that females still have to, males can sort of get the performance and that's all they need to have, but females perhaps need another side story or something to really help them along the way. It's a really odd one because, like, females, sweeping statement, and stereotypically, and all the research shows that female athletes are a lot more relatable actually to their fans, for engagement, and whether that is because the sponsorship hasn't been there, so the women have to sort of work their way up, and they're very humble to that, and they a lot more grounded and engaged and maybe seen as normal people. I don't know. So there's all this about how better females are for brands because they're more relatable and they've all got these stories. And I'm not saying that men have incredible stories as well. We only seem to focus on the results for the men, and that's enough to give them a sponsorship, where the women, their results and their performance is a tick, but then they seem to have something else as well to get a brand to sponsor them or to get noticed. And it's, there's always, it's not, we can never just focus on the female's performance and how well they've done. It's always another story that everyone's looking for, and which is great because, again, that does show that relatable, but then either let's do that with the men as well, or vice versa, let's just celebrate the female for their athletics performance and how good they are, not just having to search for what's the extra the bit that they have. So
yeah, because I think Helen Glover, she got loads of, I think she got some sponsorship from some yogurt company because she had kids, and so she was then being followed by lots of mums with little kids who were then wanting these particular brand of yogurt. So that was kind of her side story. But what advice would you give to the girls and the boys about sponsorship and athlete branding and their identity around sport? And have you got any advice there?
Gosh, I mean, sponsorship and branding, I think authenticity is the main thing for me. And being really true to your values and integrity, and always being who you are. Don't try and be someone else. I think for brands and sponsorship now, you've really got to think of what's a two-way partnership, and what can you give to that brand. So yeah, some of them will just be, hey, please help out a young up and coming athlete, sort of thing. Like, it's a good thing to do. This is a good thing for your company to be seen, to be involved in helping young athletes coming up, especially those that might not be from the same backgrounds as everyone else and need a little bit more of a foot on the ladder to help them. And then others, it is trying to think what you can give back to that brand that goes outside. I always think outside that social media. It's not just, oh, I'll do so many posts and stuff, because they can pay an influencer to do that. Like, what makes you unique as an athlete, and what is your story? What is your background? Where have you come from? I think that's really good, and that helps you build your identity and who you are. If we talk about identity, so sort of slightly tangent, verging into another area, I think it's really important as an athlete, or even if you want, and you know from a young age that you want to be a professional athlete, and yeah, I get it, like, throw yourself into that, give yourself the best opportunity, work hard, do everything to give yourself that best chance. But also you want to work on having other things in your life, and if that is another hobby, or obviously still keep up with your schoolwork and your exams and stuff like that, and try and get that education, because sport is so fickle. If it's a team, you might not get selected, and it's nothing you can do, that's not in your control, because it's subjective from a selector or whatever. Team or individual, you might get injured and you can't compete, you can't play, you can't train, and hopefully you can rehab and come back, and you often come back as a stronger athlete and a better athlete. But during that time when you are rehabbing, you need other focuses, other strings to your bow, so to speak. And also some injuries unfortunately can be career ending, and then so it's important to just be, there's a lot of, when an athlete's injured, there's a lot of questioning, and end of career, like, who am I? Because I'm not an athlete anymore, so how do I fit into the world? And so whilst I know everyone listening to this from the charity or the young athletes were like, I don't want to think about the future, I'm 18, 16 or whatever, I don't want to be thinking about retirement. I think it's important to just still put some work in place early to think, if it all went wrong, what would I do? And also, as hopefully everyone has a really long sustainable career, but even still, like, just thinking, okay, what after this chapter is over, what's the next chapter look like? And how can I give myself a bit of a platform that when I start that next chapter, I can hit the ground running. And really important to try and understand who you are as a person. So who are you outside of the athlete? Because if you only see yourself as an athlete, it's really hard when you get injured and or that gets taken away from you if you don't value yourself as a person and are bigger than the athlete.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's hugely important advice to everybody out there. And we touch on it when we do our 8-week mindset course. We you know that we do the 8-week sporting success mindset course, and we do one of the areas that we talk about is truths in sport and failure in sport, and we have to cover those topics because the reality of sport is that we are going to get injured, we are going to have setbacks, we aren't going to perform as well as we want to on some days. So we have to work on how we can just be our best every time we possibly can, and sometimes our best isn't going to be a personal best, but it'll be our best on that day. And you know, we have to remember our bodies want to hear, and they want us to get back and to get back on it. But yes, some of them can be, you know, career ending. And in fact, you know, we have 2 tumblers who are with Cass and Friends, and both our tumblers have broken their neck. One of them is not coming back into the sport, but one of them has recovered and is back. So
oh my God. Wow.
It's happened already. It's happened already, and Lexi's very open about it. And she's been so brave, and is going to cut. You know, she's looking at other sports because she really. I mean, she wants to go back to tumbling, but she's respecting perhaps her parents' opinions, which is very brave as a young sort of 15-year-old. And so she's looking at other sports to do. So it's a very real situation that all our athletes will be facing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, talking of mindset, so let's have some top tips on mindset. I know that you spoke to some chap, and he talks to you about a Bugs Bunny smile, which is going to keep you through the moments in a 9-hour or 8.5 hour Ironman to keep you going. Tell us about your other strategies.
Yeah, I mean, obviously my sport is over 9-10 hours. I'm thinking kind of most of the sports that the athletes involved in the charity, supported by the charity, are sort of shorter time spans and short moments of thinking. But I think there's the Bugs Bunny thing is it's almost trying to bring yourself back to being in the present, and it was about enjoying the moment. And so if things are hard and you're struggling, it's impossible not to feel good endorphins and to smile if you're like making a Bugs Bunny face, I think was it. And also then potentially other people smile and laugh back, and you can feed off their energy. So I think, you know, it's always about being in the moment and appreciating it. And again, it's really hard to say this to the younger generation, but if you are gifted at a sport and you work hard and you put the time in, and you can really sort of achieve great things, like to not take that for granted. That is a huge opportunity that you are so lucky to get, that you can follow your passion. Or I hope it's a passion. I hope it's not a chore kind of thing and you're being forced into it, because you know, so many people don't get that opportunity. And so I think it's really important to keep that with you, that you choose to do this. And it's, you know, you get to do this. There's so many people that don't. And around being present with that and really grateful every day. But yeah, I think other things are, the Bugs Bunny, trying to be, if you're not feeling great or you're struggling as such, but if you can try and force the smile, I think the endorphins kind of will follow. I think, you know, other things of process is really important, and particularly maybe with I can imagine with tumblers or sort of individual sports where they are, you know, even athletics and track and running, they've got sort of one event and it's a couple of, you know, seconds or minutes, but that's it. To really have a process that works for you in those moments before the race, and practice that in training as well, so that it's just it is part of what you do to then get your body ready to perform when that gun fires. I think is really key as well. Probably some of them.
We do a lot of work on visualization, especially. So
Yeah.
you know, a lot of athletes might have a physical warm up, but they've never really considered doing a mental warm up as well.
Yeah.
So we do that, and we do a lot of visualization with that. And yeah, there's so many different sports that we support. It's really nice to see that the mindset course spans all of them. So from a darts player to a tennis player to a tumbler to a canoeist, it works for all of them. And I think that's because, as we touched on earlier, that sport is a metaphor for life, really, isn't it? And you're learning so many things, and the mindset is important for the sport, but that helps you in life as well. So all of the advice you've given there is really valuable.
Yeah, I think I've used a lot of visualization. And then the other one that I've used sometimes as well is sort of breathing patterns and breathing work just before the gunfires. So if your nerves are good, nerves are excitement. It's showing sort of your body is ready to go into battle, so to speak. You know, if you weren't nervous, great, you might have them super under control, but I'd also question whether it's whether you want it enough or whether there's enough sort of desire there. But nerves I think are a good thing, but it's obviously how you control them, because you don't want them, you want the nerves to accelerate and lift you, not debilitate you in your performance. So that's where, the visualization, or also just like calming breathing techniques and things like that can help. Again, part of that, you've got your physical warm up that you do before your event starts, but is there that visualization, but also just, I don't know, a minute where you're just taking in, deep breath for counting for 5 and breathing out for 5. And it can, eyes are shut and you're you found a quiet space and that sort of thing, just to settle yourself again and sort of almost, get ready to then let the body do its thing when the gun fires.
No, good, really good advice. And I won't keep too much more of your time, but I know we could chat for hours. You've had some support, in terms of, I know you work with Steve Ingham on performance and Claire Fudge on nutrition. How important do you think is it to sort of pull in all these extra, advisors and coaches and mentors for specific bits of advice for sport?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's that community and that team, because ultimately you just want to be able to get the work done to the best of your ability. And yes, I think it's great. You should have a knowledge and understanding of all the different elements that go into having that best performance. So the nutrition, the psychology, the training and things like that. But also I think the benefit, like you don't know everything. And so work with the people that are experts in their areas to help them, to guide you. Ultimately, yes, you're like the CEO. So you're the owner, the boss of your own company as the athlete. And it's you on race day or game day that's the executioner. That sounds wrong, but you're the one out there actually doing the work and performing. But you've got all these experts that can help give you advice and guide you so that you can make the best decisions and the informed decisions about what's going to get you to the best of your ability. Also, for me, sometimes like my brain is so kind of, I've got, however many conversations going on up there and different bits of information. I actually just want to switch off and be able to focus on my training and the competition and go through my process of warm up and visualization. And that's where I trust in the likes of Claire as a nutritionist and Steve or whoever it is and sports psychologists and my coach that gives me the sessions. Like I trust them implicitly.
Yes.
We've all got the same goal. We're on the same page. They want the best out of me. So I trust them that they're going to tell me or guide me in the right way. And I just have to kind of do it. And I think that's another important thing, like with all your team relationships, but particularly with your coach.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's good to ask why and ask questions and understand, why are we doing this session? Or maybe it's not in an accusing way of why am I doing this session? It's more, what do we get? What do you want me to get out of this session? So so that you know what the end result is. But it's also just sort of jumping in with complete trust in the coach, in the process, that they know what's going to be the best for you. And I think that's where you, like, for me over the years, that coach athlete relationship, and particularly now with my coach Julie Dibbons, and then the other people we work with, like, I completely trust her. Like, I don't always understand or like it, but I completely trust that she's got my best interest at heart, and she knows and she cares and she has the experience. And if she doesn't, she goes and reads and learns and asks the people, and that's for her. And she comes back with what I believe is the best plan sort of going forward. And yeah, we still have those conversations, but I think as an athlete, you've got to fully commit to your coach in trusting the process in the sessions you're getting.
Yeah, and I think that can be hard to do, and it can be hard maybe for younger athletes to have those honest conversations as to how they really are feeling. And I think, the very young athletes, maybe we start at 12 and then go to 18, the youngest ones, their parents are still a little bit involved, which is fine, I guess. But as they get older, the parents really need to step away and allow the coach to do that coaching athlete relationship. And then it really is up to the athlete to have the confidence to be able to have those honest conversations. This is working, this isn't working, I don't understand that. Because like you say, understanding the purpose of every session is going to give that athlete the benefit of doing the session to the best of their ability, because they completely understand why they're doing it.
Yeah, like, communication is just so key. And a little bit another reason why I'm moving to Boulder, because Julie gets to see me pretty much on a daily basis. So, we're both British, so we're both pretty rubbish at communicating and being open about feelings and that sort of thing. And I appreciate that not everyone is seeing their coach necessarily every day. I'd probably hope at a younger level as an athlete, you're involved. It's not remote coaching, It is more face-to-face, which I think is a huge benefit. But yeah, setting up the relationship so that the communication, that the athlete feels they can raise an issue, a conversation, a topic. And I think also not being afraid to say when you're struggling. I think, so often, and when you're younger, you sometimes think, oh, if I say I'm struggling, that they think I'm not coping, or I'm not good enough, or it's failing, and then I'll get dropped, or I won't get picked, or something like that. But I think there's huge strength in, and it might not be with the coach, it might be with someone else in that network that you can go and talk to and say, yeah, I'm feeling really tired because I've got schoolwork, or I've got issues at home with family that are really stressful at the moment. All of that has an impact on your training and your health, like your mental health, but then that impacts your physical health and recovery. And it's not the coach's job then. It's not a criticism that the athlete can't cope or can't do the work. I hope they would want to support, and if they could help diffuse any of that stress, that's one reason to say. But also the coach should be good enough then to adapt your training so that it's not diminishing it, you're not missing out, you're not doing the session. It's just giving you sessions that where your body and mind is physically, you're still going to get some amazing work done, but it's also giving the physical, mental rest, reset that actually will then let you move forward even more in your training, rather than you just keep sort of flogging away and not saying anything, and you're just putting your body and your mind under more and more stress. Then you're not going to be getting the performance benefits, and you're not going to be improving, but no one knows why. Whereas if you can have those open conversations, it's not going to necessarily get, like, I like a classic example this morning. I had a fairly horrific running session, which we've sort of been, things have been fairly sort of low key training at the moment. Because but my body and mind isn't sort of adapting, and that's an age thing as well as other things, and an accident last year. But this session was sort of looked fairly horrific on paper, and I was fairly anxious about it this morning, and was going there and was kind of like, don't know if I can do this sort of thing. And so, on the warm-up lap, and that's when your coach, how you're feeling and that sort of thing. And, I've had a few conversations with her over the last few days, so she kind of knows where I'm at. And it was, I'll explain, it's probably easy. It was a one mile on the track at a certain pace, and then 400 easy, and then going into a road loop, which was, I think, 2.4 miles at that same pace.
Yep.
And doing that twice through. And, we were able to have that conversation where it was kind of like, okay, well, let's do the first set, and we might just change it to the 1 mile at the end and not do the second bigger lap, but we'll see how it go, sort of thing. And so in my mind, and then I'm, you are playing the games like, oh, is that going to be a cop out? I'm not doing the session of what it says. But also it was because if I wasn't going to hit the numbers, you can still get a great session. You just need to adapt it to where you are physically at the moment. Yeah. And in the end, I did the whole session and it went better than expected. And that's another thing, like, you just don't judge yourself before you get going.
Yeah. When you see it on paper.
Like, yeah. So but because she was there, and she could see, and we could have that conversation. And because I was open to talking to her to say where I'm at the last few days, she was able to adapt it so that we still, we ended up obviously doing the session, but she was prepared to adapt it so that we still got a really quality, valued session, but also respected where my body was, fatigue and physically, mentally, sort of thing as well. So
no, brilliant. So communication, absolutely. I mean, in everything, isn't it? Not just coach relationships, everything is so key. But saying to the athletes, have the conversations, be confident enough to have the conversation, because the coach will benefit and you will benefit, and it's good. Just very finally then, final question. Your motto is don't die wondering. So what advice or what lasting note can you give to the athletes out there?
It's funny, in a conversation with my coach yesterday, and she brought up the don't die wondering, I was like, I wish I'd never effing had this this motto, because it comes back to me now. I think, just dream big and just work hard, and if you have a passion, like, bring people into that vision, bring people into that goal that you have, and people that can see it as well and want to support you in getting there, or at least giving it a shot. And it definitely takes a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work, but if it's also your passion, it often doesn't feel like hard work, sort of thing. It should be it should still be fun. It should, especially 12 to 18 year olds, like, this should still be a lot of fun, and it don't necessarily pigeonhole yourself in putting all your eggs in one basket. When I get it, there's a lot of pressure on athletes at that age, and it's sort of like, are they going to perform at a junior to then make it to a senior level and another team? And so there is a lot of pressure to focus in and on your one sport and everything in. But I think the best athletes who have the long sustained careers are those that have done cross training or other sports when they were young, and have kept another hobby going, and have kept that something that keeps them balanced with then being really focused on the sport, on the sport that they, you know, the one they want to focus on. If that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, no, having fun is essential, especially at that age, I think. Yeah, definitely.
A happy athlete is a fast athlete, isn't that the phrase?
I think so, absolutely. Yeah, my motto, my little mantra is relax, smile, have fun. So it's you know, I just say that to myself when the going gets tough, and it's just, yeah, it's important to have fun. So much for coming on and being our first podcast interviewee.
All good. Thanks, Fiona. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Athletic Ambitions. We hope you found this episode of interest, and if so, be sure to send this to your family and friends who might also benefit. If you're interested in donating to Cass and Friends, the links are in the description, and we'll hope to see you in the next episode. Thanks, Tom and Fee.